What up, everybody? As we wait for an update concerning Force, or another series that will be on the Ghost and Force timeline, the biggest hint we have right now concerning what's next is the phone call that Tariq received in the credits of the final episode of Power Book 2. Either though there's no confirmation about who this is, I think the most common theory amongst Power fans is that it's Tommy Egan calling Tariq for help. But in this video, I'm going to break down the Ghost and Force timelines, looking at where they're both at, because there's a key scene that happened in Power Book 2 that we haven't yet seen take place on Force. And that is Tommy Egan's return back to New York City at the end of Season 3 of Book 2 when he hashed things out with Tasha. This event is very important if that is indeed Tommy who's calling Tariq at the end of the credits of Power Book 2, because 6 months had taken place from the time Tommy returned to New York at the end of Power Book 2 Season 3 to when Tariq was talking to Chinadu when he became the Ghost in the Machine. Because the beginning of Season 4 took place the same day Season 3 concluded, with Tariq escaping Noma's warehouse, and around 2 weeks later, at the beginning of Episode 2, was the start of the spring term at Stansfield. And we know around 6 months passed from December in Episode 1, because in Season 4, Episode 9, they were taking their final exams, which would have been around the beginning of May. And the year would still be in 2023 at this point. We know it's not 2024 because Tariq, Effie, and Braden all were supposed to graduate in 2024. And Tariq was sending Effie back to Stansfield to run the Course Perfect app. So because the current Ghost timeline left off in May of 2023, and the next book likely won't start until late 2025 or early 2026 at the earliest, there will likely be a 2.5 to 3 year time jump before the next book. And that phone call that Tariq received in the credits could have came anywhere during this time frame. When Season 1 of Power Book 2 Ghost started, the timeline was around September 2020, right after Tariq shot Ghost, and he began school during the fall term at Stansfield. We know he started in 2020 because he was supposed to graduate after 4 years in May of 2024, like it showed when he closed the door at the conclusion of OG Power. And in the finale of Season 1 of Power Book 2 is when Tommy made his first appearance on Ghost, showing up after Tasha's trial when she snitched on him and said he was responsible for killing Ghost. And it was at this point that Tariq came up with the plan for Tommy to fake his death so he could get out of New York free and clear. So the beginning of Season 1 of Power Book Force was during the beginning of Season 2 of Power Book Ghost. And it's been confirmed by Stacey Marks that Tommy did already fake his death on the Force timeline. The first 2 seasons of Power Book 2 Ghost took place over a span of 2 years, with a 3-month time jump at the beginning of Season 3. We know this because after Noma killed the couple in the park, Tariq showed Davis McLean a news article that said it was September 2022. I think most of this took place during Season 2 because Season 1 only lasted about 4 months from the beginning of the fall term to the beginning of the spring term. So with that said, there's been approximately 2.5 years that's taken place on the Ghost timeline since Tommy returned the first time, and since the start of Power Book Force. It had been approximately 2 years from the time Tommy returned in Season 1 and faked his death to when he returned and hashed things out with Tasha at the end of Season 3. And since the beginning of Power Book Force, there's been 2 seasons, and I believe approximately 2 years has passed, getting us to the summer of 2022, around the same time that the time jump took place between Season 2 and 3 of Ghost. That means right now, there's about a 9 to 10 month time gap between the end of Force Season 2 and the end of Ghost Season 4. And that time gap should be filled throughout the duration of Season 3 of Force. This means we could potentially see multiple Ghost crossovers in the final season of Force. The first being when Tommy returned to New York to hash things out with Tasha, and the second potentially being that phone call that Tariq received in the credits. So that means if that is in fact Tommy calling Tariq for help, it most likely isn't calling for help concerning Tommy's current situation dealing with Miguel and his love, Mireya. There's also a couple clues we can take away from what we saw of Tommy in New York during season 3 of Ghost. First being that he was quick to make peace with Tasha because of his family. He told Tasha that he has a brother, talking about JP, and a nephew, talking about D-Mac. It also didn't seem like Tommy was going through some kind of stress or emotional trauma like he was when we last saw him at the end of season 2, when he found out that Miguel found out about his relationship with Mireya and did something with her, saying Tommy won't be seeing her again. So because of that, it's likely that the situation with Mireya has already been resolved by the time Tommy went back to New York in season 3 of Ghost. We also know that Tommy stayed in New York for more than one day, because when Tariq woke up in the hospital the next day, he went straight to Kate looking for Tommy. And even though Tommy wasn't at Kate's, he was still in New York, because not long after this is when Tommy found Tariq leaving Noma's warehouse, and when he told Tariq how him and Tasha hashed things out. There's also a couple clues concerning Kate Egan. Last time we saw Kate Egan, she was on Force in the hospital fighting for her life after doing too much coke that Tommy gave her. This was after she had tried getting sober on behalf of her grandson, D-Mac. But when Tariq showed up at Kate's in season 3 of Ghost, she was still drinking and offered Tariq a glass of Hennessy. At this time, Kate also had moving boxes all over her house, and by the beginning of season 4 of Ghost, when Tariq had Pinky checking up on Kate, Pinky said that Kate wasn't home and it looked like nobody had been there for a while. So not only will we see Tommy return to New York in season 3 of Force, we'll also see Kate return. And when we see Kate returning to New York, we'll know that Tommy will be following her soon after, because she'll get the letter from Diana with Tasha's address that causes Tommy to return to New York in the first place. And I wouldn't doubt if they shot multiple scenes at the time this was filmed for season 3 of Ghost, for them to insert scenes into Force showing these events taking place in New York from Tommy's perspective. And something else to keep in mind about this trip back to New York is, what was Tommy doing while he was in New York for those couple days when he wasn't on camera with either Tariq or Tasha? Because the first time Tommy went back to New York about 2 years prior is when he went to check on Cash. But at the same time, it's also important to keep in mind that the people in New York think that Tommy is dead, either though word might already be starting to spread on the streets that he's alive, because Miguel and his gang was in touch with people from New York checking about Tommy. And we also know that both 2-Bit and Blanca will still be in New York during the Force Season 3 timeline, because Blanca was in all of Ghost Season 3 and also made appearances in Episode 1 and Episode 10 of Season 4. And 2-Bit made an appearance at the end of Season 3 around the same time Tommy did, and also made a quick cameo at the beginning of Season 4. This is important because the Force showrunner Gary Lennon has confirmed the return of an OG power character in Season 3, and a lot of people thought that it would either be 2-Bit or Blanca. But because they're both still in New York, this could mean that the OG character that Gary Lennon was talking about was none other than James St. Patrick, aka Ghost himself. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.